Hey there, welcome back to Black Gumbo Southern Gardening. I am late on my fall garden, but I'm still going to try. Let's talk about what we're going to grow this year. Okay, well, the fall garden. Generally here in Zone 9A on the Texas coast, I like to have my fall garden in the ground by October, middle of October. But it's the beginning of September. In fact, we're a week into September and I haven't started anything yet. Sometimes life throws you curveballs and you have to react. And well, there just hasn't been time for gardening. If you follow my channel, you know that from the lack of videos. But the benefit of Zone 9A here on the Texas coast is that you can grow through the fall and the winter. So I've got a long season ahead. The crops we're going to grow are cool hardy, and most of them are cold hardy and freeze. They can take a freeze and some frost. So we can grow all the way up to the beginning of our spring garden, which is, that gives us a long season. So I'm going to talk about what I'm going to grow today and show you the kinds of things I'm choosing for the garden and maybe even start some seeds. I'm actually up here by my seed starting station that I built in a previous video. And it's ready to go. I just need to start the seeds. So what are we going to grow this year? Well, I love cauliflower. So I got this cauliflower, Durgesh 41 from Baker Creek. And I've grown this in the past and it did really, really well for me. Nice big heads of cauliflower. I just like growing cauliflower. I like to eat it. So that's what we're going to grow. Lots of brassicas this year. Those are, of course, the cabbages and kales and broccolis. I'm going to grow this flat Dutch cabbage, this premium late flat Dutch cabbage. This cabbage is just a heading cabbage, but it's not one that I've grown before. I've grown in the past Gloria Weinkhausen and a couple of other cabbages, and they do well for me here. I did have some cutworms last year, but we got beyond that. I'm also going to grow some Chinese cabbage, this Hilton. I grew this a couple of years ago, and it was awesome. It handled the freeze, the frost, and I made kimchi with this. Wonderful cabbage, beautiful. They grow really well. Didn't have many pests with this one either. So we're going to start these cabbages indoors right here on these trays and plant them out when they get big enough. I've got some other cabbages in here. Let's see. I bought this one called Granat, and it's kind of a long, skinny cabbage. We're going to try this one as well. I just thought it looked interesting, and the description of how it tastes was interesting to me. I'm going to grow this broccoli. I'm not even going to try. I'm just going to let you look at it. Well, maybe I should try it. Natalina di Fasano Cima Grande broccoli. I don't know how you say rabe. Is it rabe or rabe? I don't know. But it's a kind of a non-heading broccoli. It gets these little florets on it, and it looks delicious. So I'm going to try some of that as well. Finally, not finally, I see I've got more. I'm going to try to grow some Asian greens. This is a superfood. It's got as much vitamin A as carrots, so says the package. Chijimisai greens. Asian greens. I always like to try a different Asian green each year in my garden. And one of the places I get good Asian food is from Kitazawa Seed. And so I've got this Chinese mustard from Kitazawa Seed. I've got Japanese turnip hybrid called Tokyo Cross. Going to grow some turnips. And I've got this pak choy hybrid, a white stem variety. And I like pak choy. These are nice and stir fries. And all of these should grow just fine in our cool weather. I'm also going to try some leeks. I'm going to grow some leeks from seed. Got these at Haas Tool, and hopefully they do well. 100-day maturity. That's plenty of time. So if these leeks can take some frost, they'll sweeten up a little bit. So that's a good crop for our area. I'm going to grow some carrots. Of course, I've got this purple elite carrot. Got that at Haas Tool. And let's see here. I've got some other root crops here. I've got a Kyoto Red and a St. Valerie carrot. I've grown these Kyoto Reds in the past, and they're really delicious and beautiful carrots. They do well here. And finally, I'm going to grow my favorite radish, Malaga radish. These are quick turnaround. They are beautiful deep purple radish, and the flesh is absolutely like ice colored. It's clear white. Hard to describe, but it's a really mild radish. It's my second favorite radish. My first favorite radish is the watermelon radish or the Chinese red meat. That's a very good radish as well. And I'm going to grow some bunching onions. I got these from Kitazawa Seed, Ishikura Winter Long. I grew these last year and had so many onions, bunching onions, green onions. It was awesome, and that's a great performer, and it grew all through the year, and I've used it all up. So that is a good one. A bunching onion. Handled the heat just fine, handled the cold just fine. Probably not a better onion if you're looking for green onions, in my case, in Zone 9A. And finally, I'm going to grow some Komatsuna, this Old Tokyo variety. Another green, another Asian green. I love Asian greens and stir fry, so that's what I'm growing in my garden this year as far as brassicas and carrots and root crops. But I have to get my garden ready. That's the problem. Because I've had to take some time off, the garden is nothing but a big plot of weeds. Tons of weeds. It's going to take a lot of work to get out there. We're right in the middle of the hottest part of the year, and getting out there and getting that garden prepared, that's the challenge. So between now and when my seedlings that I'm going to start, either today or tomorrow, when my seedlings are ready to go out, I need to have that garden cleared and ready and amended. And those seeds that I'm going to direct sow, I need to put them out there sooner than later. Okay, I have these 24 cell, let's see, 6 times 4, 24 cell Haas Tools seed trays, and I'm going to start my seeds in. Need to plan out how many of each of my crops I'm going to put in here. So I've laid them out like this. I'll have this half in the greens and this half in the broccoli, this half in bunching onions, this half in leeks. Over here I'm going to put my cabbage and cauliflower. My other cabbage, I'll do 2 rows of this, and I've thrown in some cilantro and some dill in these 2 rows to fill out the rest. Everything else I have in the fall garden will be self-seeded. They're recommended to sow them directly in the soil. So I need to get these trays filled up with moist potting mix, seed starting mix, and then we can get these in earnest. But before I do that, I need to make my labels so that I can label each row and know what I'm growing. A couple of years ago, I bought myself a gigantic pack of these plastic labels, and I still haven't run out. I have found that a pencil is the best thing to mark on these with because pencils don't fade. So what I'm going to do is just record each one and make sure I get them all down. So, all right, I'm going to fill my trays with a seed starting mix. That's what you want when starting seeds, is seed starting mix or something very fine. I've also got some peat, some Black Mountain peat. It's already nice and moist, so I'm going to use that up as well. And then what came with these starter sets is this black gold seed starting mix. It's good stuff. One of these bags will fill up at least 2 of those trays. And if I need some more, I got some cheap Fertilone seed and cutting mix. Not that great. It's just basically peat moss. So let's see here. I've got a bucket of water so we can moisten our dry peat moss. This stuff in here is already nice and moist. So I'm going to start with this. And we're just going to fill our trays up. Make sure you start with clean trays. I washed these. There's a little dust in there, but we're just going to fill this up. Top off all these cells again. Doesn't have to be all the way to the top. We're just starting seeds here. They're not going to grow long in here. All right, that's our first one. Ready to go. Now I'll put that in the tray. Let's do another. I think there's enough in here. Stuff's a little dense down in the bottom, so I'll just break it up. Potting mix should be nice and loose. I mean, seed starting mix. You want it to be pretty loose. This is perfect. You can use compost if you want, if you've got compost. Compost for me, though, is for the garden bed. It takes a long time to make the amount of compost that I need in my garden, so I'm not going to use that in starting seeds. Although I guess you're just putting it back in the garden anyway when you plant your plug. So you can use compost. Don't use dense topsoil when you're starting seeds. Get something that's nice and loose and fluffy and will hold moisture and retain that moisture. That's what we're after, moisture retention. Here comes the messy fun. In order to use this kind of product, these dry peat-based seed starting mixes, you want to pre-moisten it. And pre-moistening is sometimes, you can't just wet it down and expect it to become moist, because it's hydrophobic. It repels water, this peat, until you break it up physically. So I've got about 1.5 gallons of water down in here. And I'm going to put the whole bag in there. And I'm going to start kneading it like bread dough. We're going to make a dough. And by squeezing it, we're forcing it to take up the water. And you'll be surprised at how much water the seed starting mix can take. All right, put the rest in. Hello, Phoebe. What you doing? Huh? You haven't been on a video in a long time. Huh? Are you a hot dog? Hot out today, huh? That's why we're working in the shade over here by the fig trees. All right, now we can load our trays with our new seed starting mix that has been pre-moistened. Phoebe has been doing well. Thank you for asking, those of you who have asked. It's like she never had surgery at all. So she's completely 100% back. But because we've had to keep her off of her feet after surgery and change her lifestyle a little bit, she's not as active. And so she's put on a bunch of weight. She's a chunk now. Phoebe is a chunk. Are you a fat dog? Phoebe, a fat lard? All right, there we got that one. But she's still a good girl. All right, I'm gonna plant some seeds. I'm gonna start over here with the cauliflower and the cabbage here. So I'm gonna do 3 rows of each. So I'm gonna put my cauliflower label in so I'll know what I've got here, and my late flat Dutch in over here. And I just remember that this side is cabbage, this side is cauliflower. It says 1/4 to 1/2 inch deep. These seeds that require a little bit more depth than like the herbs and the onions, for example, are going to plant in this coarser material. All right, let's do this first. I'm just taking a little stick and making me a little hole, 1/4 to 1/2 inch deep, right in the middle there. That one's a little low, so we'll pack it down a bit. And we'll just drop 2 seeds in each one. You could do 3 if you want, but 2 seeds seems to be ideal for me. That way you don't crowd them out when they come up, but you can easily come back and thin them. Just take a little pair of snips and thin out the weaker of the 2. If you have low germination rate, adding more seeds per hole is helpful. And that's a little low. It's got an air pocket, so we'll pack it down and make our hole there. We'll do the same for the cabbage. Cabbages are planted the same as cauliflower. Be very careful not to mix your seeds up with one another, or just drop a couple seeds in each hole. 3 got in there. When you're dealing with seeds, it's sometimes difficult to count them. All I'm going to do now is cover these over very gently so that they are in contact with the soil. Pack it down a little bit, not tight, just enough to make contact with the soil. And when we water these in, it'll settle down around those seeds, and we should be having some sprouts come up pretty easily in this stuff. Now, most seeds germinate at around the same temperature. Some seeds require a little more heat than others. So if you have a heat mat, you can use it, but I haven't used a heat mat for most of my gardening career, because usually it's warm enough ambient temperature in my house or my garage or wherever I'm starting seeds to germinate. However, since I've moved away from fluorescent bulbs, which also put off heat and help to warm my seeds, and now I have LED lights, which aren't necessarily going to put off much heat, I am going to use a heat mat. I used a heat mat for the first time this past spring and found it to be useful. It's got a temperature monitoring thermometer that attaches to the little unit, and it wasn't expensive, but we're going to use that heat mat on these seeds. We want to keep the temperatures, let's see what it says. These germinate 50 to 75 degrees. What do the Leeks say? Doesn't say on the Leeks. The onions doesn't really say, but most things will germinate about 70, 72 degrees. That's usually the internal kind of ambient temperature in my house during this time of year, but my upstairs room gets a little bit warmer. So we'll just barely keep that heat mat running, and we'll use it mainly just to monitor the soil temperature with that probe that comes with it. So just water them in lightly with a bit of a mist. Let that soil settle down around those seeds, and we're done. Okay, there we are. Our seed trays, side by side, fit perfectly. Turn these lights on. You don't necessarily need the lights to germinate seeds, but once those plants peak above the surface, you really need to have that light as close to the soil as you can. These are very high. Normally the Jiffy trays are about 2.5 inches high, and you keep your lights right up on top of that soil. These are much higher, so I have more light. In my light video, I talk about lumens and what you need. I have 4 sets of 2 LED strips, and that's throwing a lot of light down on here. So we should be good. Well, thanks for joining me on Black Gumbo Southern Gardening. If you're into fall gardening in Zone 9A, please follow along. I hope we've earned your subscription today, and we'll talk to you next time. Take care and happy gardening. Bye-bye.